Hi everyone, my name's Janelle. I'm a functional nutritionist who lives and plays in the Sierra Mountains, and this is my podcast where we talk about functional health with a mountain twist in 30 minutes or less. Today, I'm talking with my friend Meggie Inouye. Meggie is a pediatric nurse practitioner and lactation consultant. Meggie provides primary care for children birth to teens and provides support for breastfeeding moms. Meggie is also a badass trail runner here in Tahoe who regularly competes in trail races, including the Castle Peak 100K, Canyons 100K, and the Tahoe 100K. Meggie is a brilliant thinker, and she also has a huge heart. I hope you enjoy our talk as much as I did. Hey, Meggie, thank you so much for joining me. So my kids have seen Meggie as one of their primary care providers. I have run and chatted with Meggie on the trails, and Meggie has also taken a couple of my nutrition classes. So Meggie, it is so clear to me how you go above and beyond for your patients to make sure you're helping them in the most complete way you can. So thank you. I am so grateful for how much heart and curiosity you bring to your patients and your work in healthcare. So thank you for that.
That's a wonderful compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's noticed and appreciated. So thanks a lot. Okay, you have been ticking off a lot of the great Northern California ultra races, right? And this
Trying.
summer, you're doing amazing. And this summer, I saw you're signed up for the Broken Arrow Triple Crown, which includes the vertical kilometer, the 46K, the 26K, right?
Yeah, 3 days in
Yeah,
a row.
3 days in a row. I can't wait. I'll be there to cheer you on. How are you feeling about that one?
Uh, Thankful I've still got a couple of months to go because I'm actually currently recovering from another race in the moment. But
Tell us what that other race was.
yeah, I just about a week ago completed the Canyons 100K, which is from an area just above Forest Hill down to Auburn, mostly on the Western States Trail. So it was a lot of uphill, almost 13,000, and a ton of downhill, 17,000 down. So climbing up and down all day long, calling it the roller coaster as well as the foot muncher. So my feet are a bit beat up, but I don't know. I feel like with some of the kind of preparation, mostly about like just getting my body strong as well as well nourished, I think I did a good job, but I still have a lot of troubleshooting to figure out with this whole journey. So in recovery mode right now.
Well, I am so impressed. Good job. You
Thank
crushed
you.
that. And I love seeing your pictures. I mean, you look great after and so happy. And so brilliant job there. And so I hope your feet recover quick.
Yeah. That's just one of those things I think, I hope always for an athlete about being able to be quick, but I also think now in this life, part of my life, just turning into 40, I think also just realizing a bit of the slowness has been maybe also one of my, I don't know if you would say superpowers, but just being okay with that. That, right, if my feet are totally beat up, I don't have to go beat them up more. It's okay to rest and nourish myself. And I think that's kind of revolutionary thinking that at turning 40 is really benefiting me and also a learning curve.
Yeah, I think it takes several of us decades to learn that one, right? It's an
Yeah.
ongoing lesson. That's
Yep.
awesome. Good. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you could rest with me here then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's super common for people to consider the food they're eating and the physical training, the strength, the running, as a really as the whole training plan.
Hmm.
And I think those are obviously really important, but I genuinely love the training around an ultra because it naturally invites us to think more functionally. We kind of
Hmm.
have to think beyond just the food and just the strength and running because as you know, so much can happen in 50 to 100 plus miles out there. So, when we are training functionally, we really do see and feel how all of our body systems impact our performance and how those big events impact all of our body systems.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we also really, it's clear that there is not one size fits all training plan, right? It's so different because we're all unique, which is
Correct.
another pillar of functional thinking. So, we have digestion, your mental headspace, mitochondria, your adrenals and stress,
Mm-hmm.
microbiome, liver, hormones, of course, blood sugar. So I'm so curious, Meggie, I would love to hear your thoughts, how you sort of look at training and resilience in kind of this functional way. Like if there's one or two or three or whatever areas where when you're training or when you're building your resilience and your strength, what you're thinking about that maybe goes beyond, just food that day and just running.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like that is a nice thing about running is sometimes you just get to move and eat, but that's not the truth when you look at your like week, your day, all those things. I think a lot of what I think about beyond putting the training calendar on is the cadence of rest days as well as really trying to focus on high quality sleep, which
Mm,
means a lot of things I've picked up from your classes, but getting myself, when I think about the timing of my runs, making sure they're not close to when I want to fall asleep. So I've
mm,
started to shift to an earlier in the day person, morning or early afternoon, because I know that that if we exercise too late in the day, that's going to shift our hormones to prevent sleep. And you can speak to exactly the specifics in the hormones. I feel like it's something I'm still learning, but I notice if I try to exercise hard during the end of the day that my sleep is not poor or is poor and just really not as restorative. The other thing I've been seeing, like when we talk about the ultra world, think there's a lot being sold to us as athletes, for better or worse, of a lot of highly processed foods,
mhm,
bars and stuff that's just really convenient and packaged. And I think that there's some really good products out there, but also I've been really experimenting with like true food in my pocket. So things like rice balls, potatoes, trying to think of all the other things, just stuff that actually is food, that isn't something that was made in a factory, really. Um,
I love
and
that. So you mentioned,
yeah,
can we just like
yeah.
double click on that quick? Because I really like that. So you love rice balls. And do you make those with rice alone or do you put anything else in there?
Yeah, I mean, I use rice, I use salts, I use nori, which is seaweed, sometimes sesame. Sometimes I even also mush it with sweet potatoes, so it's kind of a mess, but
Mhm.
it actually feels like, yeah, it feels like real food.
Yeah, I'm going
Um,
to confess
and sandwiches.
one of my favorite trail foods are those with a little bit of bacon on it too.
Hmm. And
It's
actually,
like,
my other confession, because this is my Japanese husband, is we eat a lot of musubi, which is traditionally with spam, actually. So
mm,
bacon or something like that could be a nice
wow.
one. And that's not something we eat all the time, but it's good pocket food and
Mhm.
kind of goes a long way. It's salty.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
And it's interesting because I mean I was talking about, I mean I'm a nutritionist, how it's not
Yeah.
just about nutrition, but
Hmm.
really this specificity is even better because not all food is made the same, obviously.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, these have such a different impact on your body. And the potatoes is one of my favorite too. I like boiled.
Yeah.
John has mashed. What's your
Yeah.
preference?
Right. I think I like boiled. They're a little like less messy if you would, I don't know, to eat really
Mhm.
quickly. I know what else is on my list. Sandwiches, fruit if I can get it out there, but that's an aid station staple for me, watermelon. Um, but I find, you know, like my body just seems to run if better, literally run, if I can fill it with good food, whole foods along the way. I find my blood sugar seems to like spike high and quick on some of those goos, and I really can't go the distance, or at least if I need to do it in combination with those things. I need to do real food in combination if I'm gonna experiment with those things. So, Yeah, I mean, I think too, just acknowledging like that you were talking a lot about the different systems in our bodies. And the biggest one too, I think, is mental, with
Mhm.
these long endurance runs and races. Um, and I find when I'm out there for hours that, um, there's certain mantras, or I don't know, like just things that I'll repeat to myself when things get hard, that I find I will practice in other times of my life as they kind of integrate. As simple as like, yeah, I don't know, as you can do it, or um, move smoothly, just telling myself in ways to like almost use some mental tools that I practice, yeah, out on the trail. I also will get to know the trail and then repeat like visualizations of like how I
Mm.
want to feel when I'm out there.
Oh,
So when I'm
wow.
going up a hill, I'll kind of I'll be like in my bed nights before a race and just kind of think about different parts of the course and tell myself like going uphill, I'm going to feel strong, and I'm going to keep moving steady. And having practiced that before in my head are the times when I've been able to keep it together, I guess, when things get tough. Or just to know when I practiced in my mind, like, oh, this is a smoother spot where I know I'm allowed to like let it go and just move more freely. So
I
that's
love that.
yeah, and that's a tool. I feel like I don't even actually know where I got that one. It's probably actually from one of my high school cross country coaches, which had much shorter courses. But to kind of just lay and be still and to visualize the areas and just how you want to feel during that time.
I think that
Practice
is so
feeling.
big, Maggie. That is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
because we know that, I mean, everything's connected, right? So when we feel and we practice how we want to feel, that is going to impact our entire body, and maybe even how much effort we have to exert or how stressful something is on us. I think mindset is really just so big. And I mean, I don't know if it's overlooked. It's not in the ultra world, of course, but but it's such a big thing. I love that trick that you have. I've never done that, so I might use that trick.
Yeah. And, that does help to know like the course a little bit ahead,
Yeah.
but I also think it's a tool that you could just say, when I'm going uphill, this is how I want to feel. And when I'm going downhill, this is how I want to feel, even if you can't know everything ahead. Some of the courses, so the one I just did, I knew decently well, but I've raced down in the Bay Area without time to go down there and train, and kind of modified those skills to, just make up for the terrain I didn't know yet. So,
Yeah, that is great. When I trained a couple years ago for a 70K I did a course, and it wasn't because of this, but I was sort of doing it alongside from Thich Nhat Hanh, and he a wonderful Buddhist monk,
hmm
and he teaches this course, and I would listen to it on the trail while I was doing my long runs and at home. But I could hear his voice saying these really lovely things when things got hard, and also how to bring it back into the moment, like what's in front of me, what does the ground feel like, what does the air feel like. And so any of these mental tricks to bring yourself into a different mindset,
hmm
or yeah, so I think that's really a cool one. I'm going to use your trick for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
especially for things around here. But I love that, even associating running uphill
hmm
with a phrase or a mantra, or running downhill when your toes are crushed like yours were.
Yeah, yeah. That one, yeah, they needed a lot of self-talk to get through that part.
Do you do any breath work practice or anything like that? Or
I do weekly do yoga at the high altitude class. Anne Marie Sheridan um, offers a wonderful class that I really enjoy, and it's depending on how she leads it, but we're always doing some breath work at the end, and throughout, learning to move with breath. I find that to be really really powerful. I don't do any on my own, and I think it's something I keep being like, I should do that. I should do that. But I kind of haven't nailed that routine independently yet. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I have experimented and really been trying to focus on the practice of nasal breathing because we
Mm-hmm.
also know that breathing through our nose increases our nitric oxide. So there's been a lot of studies to show that the more we can do nasal breathing, that helps to basically vasodilate and move blood through our body even more efficiently. So
Right,
that's a
which means our
practice.
muscles get more
Mhm.
oxygen, right? So
Yeah,
they
which means
can
our
make
muscles,
more energy.
yeah, make more energy. So that sometimes I'll purposely try to find myself at a pace to to be able to nasal breathe, and that is a really amazing, like if I can keep that pace and do that, I find my endurance is much longer lasting. So it's deliberately kind of slowing down, usually during a hike, or yeah, usually during a hiking pace, which would be like a slighter uphill. I can do a nasal breathing pace and find that it's almost like restorative to be able
Yeah.
to get into that pace and focus on yeah, on nasal breathing while still moving. So
And I think
that
that
one,
is what the research is showing, that you can
mm-hmm,
actually do some recovery in those
yeah,
brief moments that you can get
mm-hmm,
there.
yeah.
That's great.
So it does mean like kind of pulling it back a little bit purposely in the moment to be like, I'm going to, work on restoration while still moving, but not, I guess, racing the whole time. And that's kind of the luxury of the longer races I do. I've got lots of time and I'm just really trying to figure out how to last a long, a long day, a long time.
Right. Yeah. Resilience. That's awesome. So,
Hmm.
okay, Maggie, you've already talked about sleep
Yeah.
being so helpful. I mean, it's critical for ultras, right? For any
Yep.
of us doing anything in the modern world. That's when we rest, repair, restore.
Yep.
You've talked about food in terms of blood sugar and
Hmm.
metabolism and how high you're spiking and crashing and what you're burning. You've talked about even mitochondria, and those need oxygen and how we can support our mitochondria better. Am I missing anything there? Oh, headspace, of course,
Yeah.
and
Headspace.
your mindset. And yeah, so those are all really big components of training that I'm so glad that you touched on. Any other ones that are kind of quirky, or like hormones or adrenals or anything like that? Do you think about?
Yeah, I think the hormone aspect has been pretty revolutionary for me in the last year. The reason is I was able to switch to my natural cycle about a year ago because I had an IUD before and I rarely bled. So I think I would observe some of my energy levels kind of come and go with hormones. But I think now that I've been able to track my periods better than because I wasn't really before, I'm finding that there are times in my cycle when I have more energy, and that's usually during just after menstruation or in that week kind of after,
When
kind of before.
estrogen is
Mhm.
growing?
Yep,
Yeah.
and before ovulation. And then after ovulation and that higher progesterone period, I just feel more tired. And I notice I'm pretty heat intolerant during that time too. That I have a harder time, so I need to focus on like hydration or um, just maybe even moving a little slower if the temperature is higher. So for me, paying attention to that and also um, actually tracking, which I mean, I feel like I should have been doing this my whole life, especially as a healthcare provider, but I feel like I could kind of ignore it because of the IUD.
Mm-hmm.
But tracking has really allowed me to tune in to um, what those hormones are doing and how I'm feeling. And I've been finding that really important to get more protein for lots of reasons, but I think that I realize if I don't control my blood sugar, and I'm snacky all day long, that I don't feel good. I kind of slump, I get headaches, all those things. So that, the hormone and nutrition factor we kind of already talked about, but it's huge. That's just been huge to me to try to figure out how to control my blood sugar. And also
I love,
doing,
pause 1 second. I just
yeah,
love that how you're speaking into this. I mean, it's just so wonderful. And that you're a healthcare provider, and you're getting so in touch with just tracking and finding out what's true for you.
correct.
I just,
Yeah. And
because there are trends, of course, with
mhm,
all the hormones low during, menstruation, and then it's estrogen rises, and then
mhm,
everything's high, and then progesterone's
mhm,
high in the second half. There's trends, but the
yeah.
most important thing is finding out what's true for you. And we do that by tracking exactly and tuning in
Mhm,
exactly how you're saying.
yep.
So I just love that. I just had to comment.
Yeah. And I found, for me, a really helpful app is this app called Fitter Woman, which
Mhm.
allows me to track my cycle and some of my training, and also gives a lot of tips on foods to try, or what you might expect with energy levels. And it's just nice to have that really conveniently on my phone, and kind of syncing with everything. I'm not a high technology person. I do have a smartwatch that I do track. I use Strava to track all my workouts, but I'm not the person that cares all the time. I often take the watch off at night rather than tracking my sleep, but I'm finding these tools in moderation for me is what works. I don't want to
Mhm.
be, I don't want to, I want to pay attention to how I feel first and foremost,
Mhm.
but also use some of the data um, to help me also make some decisions. And right, and the
Yeah.
tracking. And the tracking could look like anything. When I'm counseling teenage women, girls in my class, I'm talking about periods and when that might happen, and encouraging them to track, and often encouraging their mothers to track who haven't been tracking either
Mhm. Thank
for
you.
various reasons. Um,
Exactly.
because it's really eye-opening, and until we kind of know a little bit what our normal is, we can't know what abnormal is. Maybe we have a sense of it, but gaining some, I don't know, it's evidence, it's, I guess, data too,
Yeah, it's
as
getting to
a,
know
you know,
yourself, and
yeah,
yeah, and
it's
taking
kind of in,
agency in your health. And I also think
right.
it's like you can have grace when you understand. You can have compassion for yourself too.
Mhm,
If you're
mhm,
in the part of your cycle, maybe you're in day 20 and progesterone's high and it's race day.
right.
And you could either beat yourself up and say, oh my God, this is horrible. Or you could say, okay, this is progesterone's high for me right now. So I might have to fuel a little bit differently. I might need to
Mhm,
snack a little bit more. I might need to just have some more compassion for myself. And who
mhm,
knows, you might just crush it and that might not matter. But there's so many benefits that come with tracking and tuning
mhm,
in for
mhm.
sure. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so I just feel like that's been revolutionary for me in the
Mm.
last year. And
How cool, Maggie.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do. I think it has been a cool experience, and trying to share it with share that wisdom with people I care for it in our pediatric clinic. So yeah.
Yeah, which is so important. I mean, you
Mhm.
have so much contact every day with teens and breastfeeding moms.
Yeah.
So those are two big hormone shifts that we go through. And then you're in your 40s, so now you're experiencing the third, right? The
Yep.
perimenopause. Those are the three big shifts. So why don't we shift there for a second? Do you mind if we
Yeah.
go there?
Yeah.
Because you do have this unique seat that you sit in, and you see what people come to you with. Kind of get to feel how the medical system helps them, which of course there's so many strengths, but then you also get to see maybe where the gaps are in the
Hmm.
system. And so I would love to know, you know, maybe either what you think the gaps are, or how your view of healthcare has changed, and sort of where you're looking to serve people better.
Yeah. I was kind of actually reflecting on this a lot of, what I think my specific like skills and kind of passions are, and something that I was coming to of what I hope to offer children as well as new moms is a sense of safety in a time when they're feeling very vulnerable. Because I think sometimes our modern medical system is scary. White coats, lots of just in, feeling intimidation by language. And I think a big reason why I went into pediatrics originally was I had experienced being in the ER and there was a child that needed a procedure that was just really scary, and there wasn't anyone there to help talk to the family through, and they kind of needed it to be done quickly because it was a big deal. But I remember thinking, gosh, we could do this better. And I think a lot of that is the way we um, talk to people and use almost like, I would say, like psychological first aid to
Mm.
bring peace and calm to probably some scary situations. So that is kind of why I started kind of the journey into pediatrics. And then when I was thinking about my journey into um, becoming a lactation consultant and helping breastfeeding was I felt like that was a very vulnerable time for me. And I was lovingly surrounded by midwives from my birth and in my home. But as soon as we got left and were, needing to feed this baby, it was so stressful. And I was so worried about my infant's nutrition and health and not figuring out this skill. It was a very hard skill to figure out for various reasons. I that challenge just left me felt feeling so anxious, and I wanted to just be there for people to encourage them, like with very specific skills, but also for them to be cared for and that they would be empowered to also follow their own intuition and speak up for themselves when they needed something. So, um,
Wow. I
yeah,
mean, I've heard you
yeah,
say
hmm
caring for people. I mean, so many really important words. And it sounds like you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe the medical world does a great job at treating these conditions, but you've said over and over in the last couple of minutes about treating the person and showing
yeah.
up for the whole person and how they feel in that situation, not just their medical condition. And if that medical condition was checked off the list, then they're on their way. Instead, how is this person feeling here? How are they showing up? How are they after? What are their whole needs as a person, not just a condition?
Yeah, and I think I absolutely desire to see the whole, yeah, exactly the whole person. I think that that's why I come to it. And but also, and I guess I find in my day to day, I I think I do that well, but there's a lot of pressure in the 20 to 30 minutes that I get with people. But so yes, what am I trying to say? The medical system is a challenge for me, especially, and I find myself always trying to, yeah, figure out how best to operate in it while seeing the whole person. So quite honestly, before most of my appointments, I have to pause and almost take like a big breath and be like, okay, what's gonna go, reset myself for
Mm.
the next visit. So
Mhm.
um I don't know, it's there's need for us to see so many people because it seems like people have how do I talk about this? Like people need to be seen, so we need to try to be efficient with our time. So efficiency is, a wonderful thing, but making room for heart space is something I think I'm continuing to refine for myself and in my day-to-day work.
That's brilliant. I mean, I wish all of our healthcare providers were thinking about that and doing it, but I do see the challenge. So if you could change one thing, or, I'm sure you could change a bunch of things, but just pick
Yeah.
one thing to change in the healthcare system, what would it be?
I always think about time.
Mm.
I think a lot of people want and desire more time. And I also think, and this is where I'm trying to educate myself and with getting so curious about what the work you're doing is helping us to ask more questions to get to the root of what's wrong with people. I mean, we have a lot of wonderful tools, things like antibiotics, and I treat kids often for things like ear infections or pneumonias that really do need them for reasons, but why did they get those things? And I kind of come back, especially as a lactation consultant, to say, how can we go back further? And we talk a lot about our nutrition, our mother's nutrition,
Mm,
our baby's nutrition, and how to support women to feed their baby in the healthiest, nourishing way possible, which I believe is breast milk, but not to say to also support them in their life to do that, because it's not just
mm,
that simple right
mhm,
now today.
mhm. Our modern
There's a
world
lot
makes it really challenging.
makes it really challenging. And so
Mhm,
I, never use words like you have to breastfeed, because
mhm,
I don't know all the scenarios of what's happening with these women, but how can we optimize a baby's nutrition and infant's nutrition to build up their immune system, to help their jaw and mouth develop so they're not as prone to ear infections and all the things that are just um, amazingly connected from the womb to later in life. So I think in the medical system, there has been some growing long-term research that supports
mhm.
really, truly good nutrition and environmental health, but that's still a long way off. Those studies are so expensive, and um, that I hope that those studies, though, do get done. Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, how you speak really is so functional because you're asking, let's go upstream of that symptom, let's go
Mm,
upstream of that problem and really think
mm.
into what could be driving it instead of just taking care of that symptom downstream. So I love
Yeah,
it.
and
You're
I'm thankful,
natural.
and I'm thankful in pediatrics there is a lot of room to intercede with just usually some pretty simple changes. And I often talk about making one or two changes for the family, because that with our kids, like, it has to be a full
The
family
whole family.
shifting that way, especially because it's mostly um, related to lifestyle choices. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Maggie, thank you so much. You have so much
Yeah.
brilliance to share with the world, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate chatting with you, as always.
Yeah, thanks a ton. And hopefully we can get out on the trail sometime this summer.
Yeah, excited.
Cool. Thanks,
All right.
Maggie.
Bye, Janelle.